It's the Big Red versus the Big Blue here today. The Cardinals are back east and back at MetLife Stadium looking to stop this 3-game skid. Some big implications in this Week 14 matchup against the New York Giants. As always, there's lots to get into, so let's kick things off. Welcome in, everyone, to the Cardinals pregame show. Lisa Matthews, Kyle Odegard here with you today as we get you set for today's matchup. A fancy new location for us. Same great pregame show ahead for you. But before we dive into this one, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to our official YouTube channel. And all of our exclusive content is up there for your viewing, especially following today's game. And Kyle, let's start things off with some good news. And that good news is Larry Fitzgerald is back with his teammates off that COVID-19 list. And certainly there's no denying that his presence was missed greatly.
Yeah, no doubt. The offense didn't look the same the last 2 games. How much is that him not playing? I think it's a decent part of it. I was struck by how candid he was during the week, during his interview, and he was talking about how serious he took COVID-19. He said he revised his will. He was doing his estate planning, and he saw the rising death rates and the rising cases, and he seemed worried, but luckily he's in good shape now. He got back to practice. We'll see how much he plays, but it's certainly great to have Larry Fitzgerald back on the field. Yeah,
definitely some good vibes heading into this one with his return. Here is more on his big return to the field.
Great to see Fitz back. You know, he's healthy. He's excited. He might be a little faster because he's had a couple weeks off. So Larry's Larry the GOAT, and he's very excited to be out there. Practice, very hard practice player. A guy that we needed on the team, and we're definitely excited to have him back.
I feel good in terms of my body, and I don't know exactly how much I'll play or what I'll be doing. That's up to coach. But my only goal is to make sure I'm prepared, and I know my assignments on every single play, and whatever I'm asked to do, I need to do it at the best of my ability.
Obviously great just to see him in good health. And he mentioned, Kyle, during his media session this week that he actually lost 9 pounds. He says he feels the best that he's ever felt, which helps when you get to sit on the couch at home and kind of mend some of those injuries, especially at his age.
Yeah, and at this time of the season, too, for all these guys, they've been playing week after week, and those injuries will tend to accumulate. So it was a nice time off, and I think from that perspective, he's good. But cardiovascularly, you wonder if he's in shape as much before. He said he was riding his Peloton and doing as much as he could. And then if there are any lingering effects from the COVID-19 virus, we'll see exactly what they plan to do with him. But I think just having him back is an emotional boost in addition to what he does on the field.
Absolutely. They'll need his leadership down the stretch here as the Cardinals are trying to claw their way back into this playoff picture. With a win today, that would put themselves back in that wild card position, that number 7 spot. And with 4 games left, Kyle, it's a close race, as you can see. Yeah,
no doubt. And because the Buccaneers and the Vikings play each other today, you're right. If the Cardinals win, it doesn't matter which team wins that game. The Cardinals will move back up into a wild card spot. So that's a very interesting game, and we'll see how it goes. I think for the Cardinals, a Vikings win would probably be a Vikings loss would be a better outcome. So we'll see exactly what happens. But the biggest thing for the Cardinals is obviously focus on themselves. They need to get this victory against the Giants, or else it's not going to really matter what other teams are doing.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of the scoreboard watching.
See, I love it.
I like to just be able to decide your future here. Here's the remaining schedule as you take a look. And yes, if you are a Cardinals fan, like you said, you're rooting for that Tampa Bay game here today.
Yeah, and I think, you look at the Minnesota schedule, and not only do they have the Buccaneers, they play the Bears and then the Saints and then a road game against the Lions. So to me, the Vikings have a pretty tough path. And if the Cardinals can get a game ahead of them, obviously the Cardinals are in good shape where they will control their own destiny. And I think if the Cardinals win 3 of 4, they'd be in pretty good shape to make the playoffs. Obviously, that's a long way to go, but everybody's going to be watching the Vikings Vikings, the Buccaneers, the Cardinals, and there's some teams behind them trying to make a move as well.
I feel like every week I'm saying it's a must-win, but it definitely is a must-win here today, which leads us into the great debate. It's time for Debate This. Dave Pasch, Ron Wolfley. You guys know the drill. It's 3 questions. Each of you has 30 seconds to answer and then rebuke. Are you guys ready for this one?
Ready.
All right. Question number 1. Does calling the 2020 season a success require making the playoffs? Mr. Dave Pasch, how about you lead things off?
Well, if you would have asked me that question, Lisa, before the season, I would have said, no, you don't have to make the playoffs for it to be a successful year because it was a transition year. But then you started 5-2 and then 6-3. So I think in this case, yes, if you don't make the playoffs, especially with the extra team for the first time, and going 8-8 might get you into the playoffs. If you can't get in, I have to think that you say it's a disappointment.
I would have to say, looking at the offense and the way they started in the first half of the season and where we are at this point where the offense has got to improve if, in fact, the Cardinals want a chance to win out here and win games in December and get into the postseason, I think there's no doubt about it. You start a season 5-2, as David said right now, 6-3 on the season. You have the number 1 offense in the National Football League, and all of a sudden it goes poof. I mean, guys, there's no doubt about it. At this point in time, you have to get into the postseason, and that means fixing this offense.
Speaking of the offense, that leads us to question number 2. The Cardinals' bread and butter on offense down the stretch should be blank. Mr. Ron Wolfley, how about you go first? Because I know you have some strong opinions on this.
There's no doubt about it. You know, honestly, the way that defenses have played the Arizona Cardinals over the last 3 weeks in particular right now, they're challenging Kyler Murray to beat them by throwing the ball. Stop and think about that, guys. When we saw Kyler Murray earlier in this season, right, the first half of the season, think about how well he was throwing the ball. Yeah, there was an accuracy issue every now and then. We were talking about that. But Kyler Murray and throwing the ball, that was option number 1. Now everything has seemed to change, and teams are daring Kyler Murray and this offense to beat him by throwing the ball. They're stacking the box. At some point in time, you got to get back to actually just beating people, one-on-one matchups. And if you're not able to do that, if the Cardinals receivers don't win on the outside, if their offensive line don't win up front, they have no chance of actually fixing this thing.
Yeah, I really think that, to Wolf's point, I'd love to see physicality back. And that's on the offensive line. And if you can establish a strong run game and you can be physical up front, then all of a sudden now you become, as Wolf likes to say, 3-dimensional, right? You have run, pass, play action for Kyler Murray, and that's where he's at his most dangerous when the defense is scared to death of him, of what he's going to do. But it starts up front. It's not all Kyler here. The offensive line during this poor stretch offensively for the Cardinals, the offensive line has not been what it was earlier in the year. But I also wonder, is some of it about, okay, because the way the offense is set up, you're not always told just come off the ball and hit your man in the face. And I think these guys want to do that. These offensive linemen want to eat. They want to be physical. And part of this offense isn't always just coming off the ball with a painted face and a dark heart.
Is that your Ron Wolfley impersonation?
Yeah, it's kind of, that was bad, though.
A little more umph, a little bit more.
Right?
Right? Question number 3. I'm sure this will be up for some good debate here. These last 4 games are most important for which player or coach? Dave, how about you take this one away first?
Well, it's obvious. It's Cliff Kingsbury and Kyler Murray. This is the future of your franchise. And you are now in a situation where you could have easily lost 5 in a row if not for a Hail Mary. People are talking about Cliff as Coach of the Year candidate and Kyler as an MVP candidate, and all that's gone away. So even if the Cardinals win, and they win by running the football, and they get into the playoffs by, over the last 4 games, winning with defense, special teams, and running the ball, Cliff and Kyler are still going to get credit because they're part of the reason you're even in this position with the great start, because how well the offense was playing. So I think it's ultimately going to come down sink or swim to those 2 guys, and that's how it works in every organization. It's the head coach and the quarterback.
Yeah, I'm not going to dispute that, David. I will focus more on Cliff Kingsbury right now as the head coach. I will focus on that because, listen, again, in the first half of the season, the Arizona Cardinals offense, they were the number one offense in the National Football League in terms of yards generated. That's really, really good. They were number one in terms of first downs. They were really, really good in the red zone, of course, really good in goal-to-go situations. They were really, really good. They scored points. This was an elite offense, as David said right now. Defenses have made adjustments to the Arizona Cardinals over the last month of the season. They have made adjustments. Now it's time for Cliff Kingsbury also to make an adjustment and not just go out and try to do the exact same thing. So I think it's very, very important for Cliff.
All right, guys, it's time for your final word in this. Dave Pasch, you're up first.
Again, boy, I think about, I don't know in 20 years, right, that I've ever seen.
Stop it.
That I've ever seen, David,
Stop
an
it.
offense go from elite to below average, right?
Right.
So, I don't know that I've seen it before, ever, over the course of a month, go from elite to where the Cardinals are now offensively. And if it's more of the same today, look out.
Yeah, okay. That's enough of that awful impersonation right there. I really do believe this, though, guys. Offensively, they've got to fix this thing. This is a huge deal right now. I think this is job one. You have to fix the offense. And if you fix the offense, I think getting into the postseason will take care of itself. But playoffs, as Jim Morris said, I'm not talking about playoffs. Who's going to do that when your offense is in a turmoil right now? Cliff Kingsbury, Kyler Murray, DeAndre Hopkins, Kenyon Drake, your playmakers, Larry Fitzgerald, Christian Kirk, these guys at the beginning of the season, we were like, these guys are going to be unbelievable. And looking at them on paper, you were filled with this hope and expectation, and they paid that off. And now suddenly they're lost. You have to fix this offense or you can forget about anything else.
All right, lots of impersonations going on this morning. Kyle, who are you going to choose as the winner here?
It's definitely the easiest one of the year so far. I mean, Dave Pasch mocked his opponent the entire time, which is highly encouraged here. Dave Pasch, easy runaway winner.
That's how you win on this show.
Kyle, I have to say.
That's so bad, Kyle.
So
Dave,
bad.
you are running on some energy here.
Fantastic
I know you had a late call.
impersonation. Don't let Wolf bring you down.
Yeah, when you drive and you get in at 3 in the morning and you wake up at 7, can somebody get me some coffee and 4 Advil? I have a massive spike in my head, dude.
You definitely are pulling a Wolf here today. Thank you guys for your time. Appreciate it as always. We'll see you in the postgame show.
Brutal.
I'm not even going to try my Wolf impersonation.
No.
I don't think I can.
Dave did it for all of us.
He did it for all of us, for the people. All right, it's a 1-0 mentality for the Arizona Cardinals as they are getting ready for this final 4-game stretch here. It's our Minute to Win It, presented by Desert Financial Credit Union.
It's been a good week of practice, good week of preparation. Everybody just focusing up on exactly what they got to do, doing their job, and at the end of the day, playing hard and getting after it. That's what I noticed this week. Everybody flying around and running to the ball.
You got to find a way really just to energize yourself and stay locked in. You don't have as much adrenaline going with the fans and everything like that. But again, we got to find a way to get a W, man. We're playing for our lives right now.
For us, we just are paying attention to do your job, do your assignment. Don't try and work anything outside of your assignment. Just do what you're supposed to do, and everything else will follow itself.
We've had these spells where we just have no offensive production, and we can't do that. We can't put our defense in a bad spot, and we got to fix it. We got to fix it. We dug this hole. Now we got to get ourselves out of it.
We're not far off. Got 4 games left, and each game is crucial. And we know that. Everyone knows that, and we understand. It's 1-0 mentality, and we gotta win.
It's hard not to feel like you're part of the problem when you're not there to help. So, I hope that I can, bring some added energy and do something to help our team be able to get back in the winners' circle.
Now, Kyle, it's not often that Fitz sits back and watches the Cardinals play. We know that. So he's going to bring a different perspective here today. What do you think that might be for this offense?
Yeah, it was definitely interesting listening to him, and said he did see things differently from a more bird's eye view instead of focusing completely on what he's doing in his own position. He didn't exactly go into detail of what he's going to say, but he did notice certain things about the offense, and maybe that advice will help, where he was a little bit removed from the situation, maybe saw things on television that you wouldn't normally see. I don't know what kind of adjustments that means exactly, but having Fitz's advice after he's seen so much in the NFL, he's practically a coach on the field at this point.
Listen to Fitz. We'll get more into that later on in the show, but let's take a look here, Kyle, at the inactives list, who's in and who's out for today's game. And look at that. We heard about that yesterday. Zane Gonzalez is out due to a back injury.
Yeah, popped up on Friday, and Mike Nugent was elevated from the practice squad. He's a veteran kicker who's been around for a long time. He's going to do the kicking. We all know the focus that's on the kicking game. Zane Gonzalez has missed some critical field goals in recent weeks, and if this game is close, you have to make your field goals. So having a guy like Mike Nugent, I think, is good because he's been in the NFL for a long time, and there's going to be a spotlight on him for sure, and he needs to perform nicely, and if he does and it's a close game, that could mean a lot for the Cardinals.
Now for the Giants, the question all week was whether or not Daniel Jones or Colt McCoy would be at quarterback, but we will see here today what they end up doing.
Yeah, and Daniel Jones being active was pretty much thought was going to happen, and I'd expect him to start. I mean, it sounded all week like he was trending in the right direction. He was a full participant on Friday. My question is, he has a hamstring injury. Will that slow him up a little bit at all? Because he's more of a dual threat than you might think looking at him, and he has done some things with his legs this season. We remember Kyler Murray in Week 17 last year against the Rams. He couldn't do much with his legs because of a hamstring injury, and we'll see if Jones is affected at all. And we do have a shot of him warming up, so he's out there getting ready, and we'll see exactly how he looks.
Yeah, and of course he had that infamous run. You talk about his athletic ability moving outside the pocket. I think that was against the Eagles, I believe. So, I mean, that was tough luck. But they ended up scoring on that drive.
Until he face planted.
That's something I would not want to happen to me. All the pressure, the end zone is right there, and you just fall over yourself a little bit.
But you're right. I mean, that's what he can do with his legs. Before the fall, he was looking good, and he really tricked the defense. So that's something to watch to see how mobile Daniel Jones is in this game.
All right, let's take a look here. We already did the Verizon look at warm-ups. Let's move along here to Darren Urban, who is usually out with the team at MetLife, but something odd going on here. It's called COVID-19. It's called 2020. And Darren, we like to highlight a lot of the streaks that Larry Legend, he's able to pull here together as a Cardinal, but you have quite the streak. 443 games that you have covered in person. That's dating all the way back to 1947. Yet today it changes. I mean, we joke about it, but obviously it's such an odd year for all of us. We obviously love your perspective that you bring, being able to be there with the team in person. This has to be such an odd morning for you.
It has been really weird, Lisa. That streak includes all the preseason and all the trips out of the country and all the postseason games. And the last game that I did not cover live for the Cardinals was their 1999 season finale, which actually happened to be on January 2nd, 2000. I've been at every game since then. So for me to be sitting here actually at the Dignity Health Arizona Cardinals Training Center doing this hit right now is very, very weird for me. But I'm blessed to have the job I have. We're still covering the game, and obviously there's lots of people out there in the world that are in dire straits right now because of this pandemic. So having a streak broken, while I wish it hadn't happened, is a small price to pay, all things considered.
Darren, you've still got your vast football knowledge that we can lean on. Let's talk about Chase Edmonds. He's had two fantastic games at MetLife Stadium last year against these Giants. He ran for 3 touchdowns, more than 125 yards. Earlier this season against the Jets, he looked really good. How much of a factor do you think he needs to be in this game? It seems like he's been one of the better skill players on offense all season for the Cardinals.
Well, I mean, to be honest, Kyle, I mean, one of the things I want to see is how the running backs in general do. We don't know exactly how much Kenyon Drake is going to be able to give today. He was dealing with a hip issue all week. He was listed as questionable. He is active, and he's going to play, but is he limited in any way, shape, or form so that Chase Edmonds has to play some more? I think Chase Edmonds has been one of their most dynamic players on offense all season. We all know that. And if anything, they need dynamic on offense right now. And I don't know what the answer is. I don't know if it's more Chase Edmonds. I don't know if it's Kyler Murray running the ball a little bit more, DeAndre Hopkins earlier in the game, or whatever it might be. But they absolutely have to find something quickly. And if Edmonds can give them that spark, hey, that'd be perfect.
Now, the Giants' offense, not dynamic by any means. It's this defense that has been really carrying things for them. They've been rolling as of late, winning 4 in a row. Where have you seen the biggest shift for the Giants defensively?
Well, I think they've gotten smart with the personnel that they've had. And, again, this was a team that changed coaches in the offseason, and that included changing defensive coordinators. They have James Betcher there last year, the former Cardinals defensive coordinator. They moved on. It's Pat Graham, and maybe it just takes some time for things to click in. But they've been playing excellent football, and we saw last week with against the Seahawks how good they can be. I mean, I don't think Russell Wilson has looked any worse than he did last week. He's been in kind of a slump himself anyways, but the Giants' defense is what won him the game last week with Colt McCoy at quarterback for the Giants. And given how Kyler Murray and this offense has been going for the Cardinals, playing a defense that's on a hot streak is probably not the most ideal situation.
Yeah, and Darren, looking at the offensive struggles a little bit more, last season Cliff Kingsbury showed a willingness to switch up his offensive schematics midseason when he went to more tight ends after 4 weeks of the year. Do you sense that the Cardinals would be willing to do something like that at this time because of the struggles the last 3 weeks, or do you foresee more minor adjustments because of the success they did have earlier?
I think that's a great question, Kyle. I mean, we both heard Chase Edmonds talk this week when somebody asked him about Cliff Kingsbury and his willingness to adjust. And Chase Edmonds couldn't say enough good things about Cliff. And as soon as something went wrong, how quickly Cliff is willing to look at it and do changes. And I agree that Cliff Kingsbury's ego is such that he is willing to do that stuff. I just don't know if we've seen enough of it on the field and why it's not translating. And I think I don't know if you can make a major shift like putting Kyler Murray under center or anything like that at this point. But they've got to find something because the last 2 weeks have just been not good at all. And even the week before against Seattle was underperforming from where they were. And I don't understand, as Dave Pasch had said in the previous segment, I don't understand how an offense that was averaging over 400 yards a game and leading the NFL has fallen so far so fast. It just doesn't make a lot of sense. And this seems to be the make or break week right here. It's a must-win game in a lot of ways for their playoff hunt, and I feel like it's a make or break week in terms of their offense as well.
All right, let's get into our keys to the game presented by Arizona Ford Dealers. My first key in this one, get Hop going early. You've heard all week long, can the Cardinals make adjustments to get back into some type of offensive rhythm? And to me, that's getting Hop going early. We saw that in that second half of last week's game, the up-tempo offense, giving him the ball more. Let's start that off from the top of things. Number 2, my second key, goes hand in hand here. Give this defense a breather. We've seen this defense be able to hold it together, but this offense did not do enough last week just to sustain drives, give them some time on the sideline just to take a breath. Okay, we saw this offense go about 4 3-and-outs in a row last week. That's not going to be effective. Let's give this defense a rest here. Kyle?
Yeah, I agree. My first key is get pressure off the edge. I feel like defensively, the Cardinals haven't gotten enough consistent pressure. I think it was notable last week. Jared Goff looked very comfortable in the pocket. To me, Hassan Reddick, Marcus Golden, Devon Kennard, those are 3 guys that you'd like to see them get after the quarterback consistently, make Daniel Jones feel uncomfortable. That's a big deal every week, but I think especially this one when Daniel Jones may not be as mobile as normal. And my second key is bread and butter efficiency. To me, the Cardinals' bread and butter offensively is that zone read and running the ball, and they have not done very effective stuff with the zone read in the last few weeks, and I think they have to figure that out. even if it's not Kyler Murray carrying the ball, if the Giants take that away, that means Chase Edmonds and Kenyon Drake have to get back to getting the 4.5, 5 yards per carry. If you do that, it opens things up so much for your offense, and I think the Cardinals have to run the ball well today. Darren?
My first key for this game is adjust to the adjustments. We've talked a lot about how these defenses the last few weeks have changed their ways in terms of how they're defending Kyler Murray. Okay, now it's time for the Cardinals to adjust to that and figure out where the holes are now created so they can get some offense going. And then my other one, the Fitz factor. Larry Fitzgerald is back after his bout with COVID. He missed 2 games. No, he's not the receiver he used to be. No, he's not going to go out and get you probably 8 to 111 yards and 2 touchdowns. But he can be a factor in this offense. He can get you some key first downs. And hopefully, he's something that defenses are going to have to deal with, at least to the point where maybe it opens some things up for DeAndre Hopkins more, or Dan Arnold, or Chase Edmonds, or whoever.
Yeah, the Cardinals definitely not the same without Fitz. We saw that last week, and they will not be the same without you, Darren. But you enjoy the game on the couch.
Much shorter trip home, at least.
A much shorter trip home. I appreciate it, guys. Thanks.
All right, thanks for your insight as always. And Fitz, look at him. He's back, and we will see how many snaps he'll get. Obviously, all these receivers need to step up here today, because one thing what we do know about this offense is they are missing those explosive plays out there.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Like you said, you look at Christian Kirk there, his performance the last few weeks has not been close to what it was previously. The Cardinals need those chunk plays, and Christian Kirk has given that to them earlier in the year. If he can get going, if Fitz can get going, all of a sudden your offense has a lot more weapons.
Well, this Giants team is number 1 in the NFC East, winning 4 in a row here. Coach Kingsbury previews today's matchup in his weekly show, Game Plan, alongside Paul Calvisi and Ron Wolfley.
You talk about a team that has made a turnaround. How about the New York Giants? Started 0-5. Right now they're leading the division. They just went into Seattle, handed the Seahawks their first home loss. What jumps off the film when it comes to the Giants, Coach?
I would say just what you mentioned, the progression from the start of the season until now. And that's a credit to their coaching staff and Coach Judge. They're really playing at a high level in all 3 phases. Defensively, the job they did on the Seahawks and that dynamic offense was phenomenal. And to be able to go in there with their backup quarterback and win that game the way they did, you really got to tip your hat to those guys.
Do you expect the Giants to do something similar as to what you've seen over the last 3 weeks, Cliff, or do you think they might bring more pressure?
I'm sure they'll have a unique plan. That's kind of a trademark of a Bill Belichick protege, if you will. And he does do his own thing. Coach Graham, you can tell it's not exactly what the Patriots are doing. He's mixed it in and really maximized his personnel. And that to me is a sign of a great coach.
Yeah, yet another Bill Belichick disciple that the Cardinals are facing yet again. And what he talked about just there, the uniqueness that they're able to disguise a lot of things up front and in coverage.
Yeah, I think the Patriots had a great plan against the Cardinals, and you look at the 3 game against Belichick or his disciples, and the Cardinals lost to the Lions, the Dolphins, and the Patriots. Badly need a win today against the Giants.
All right, let's move along here and head down Analytics Alley. Kyle Odegard with a deep dive into the numbers presented by Gila River Hotels and Casinos. Take it away, Kyle.
4.0 was DeAndre Hopkins' yards per target on Sunday against the Rams. He had 52 receiving yards on 13 targets. That was his lowest yards per target of the season and 12th lowest of his career. So you know that DeAndre Hopkins is going to get targeted in this game, but they need to get that yardage number way up. I mean, you want him to get 70, 80, 90, 100 yards in a game, not 13 targets for 52 yards. We'll see what Cliff Kingsbury has planned. My other nugget, when Kyler Murray has carried the ball 8 times or more this season, the Cardinals are 6-1 and averaging 32.1 points per game. When he has fewer than 8 carries, they're 0-5 while averaging 22 points per game. So I don't think there's a perfect correlation between him getting 8 carries and them being great or less so and them struggling. But I do think Kyler Murray needs to get going with his legs. It gives this offense another dynamic, and we'll see what the Cardinals have plans. It's been really hard to get him loose with his legs the last few weeks.
As you said, the bread and butter need to find a way to run the ball here today. Well, let's continue with our numbers game and head into Truth in Numbers for Week 14. first number is 4. 4 rushing touchdowns for running back Chase Edmonds in 2 career games at MetLife Stadium, all of which covered at least 20 yards.
1,019. That's the receiving yards for DeAndre Hopkins in 2020. It's his 6th time eclipsing the 1,000-yard mark and his 4th season in a row.
59 yards the distance traveled on Dan Arnold's first quarter touchdown last weekend. It was the longest touchdown reception by a Cardinals tight end since Jackie Smith had a 68-yard touchdown catch against Dallas in 1972.
94 is the total tackles for safety Budda Baker this season, which leads the team and ranks 2nd among all NFL defensive backs.
3-1, that's the Cardinals' record at MetLife Stadium, which opened in 2010. Arizona is 2-0 in the venue against the Giants. A victory here today would give the Cardinals road victories against both New York teams for the first time since 1972. And like we've said, a much-needed victory would definitely be the perfect gift for this Cardinals team here today. And speaking of gifts, Kyle, we all need some ideas this holiday season. Why not gift the Arizona Cardinals fans with some tickets for 2020? Hook up your Bird Gang with the 2021 season ticket priority list because, man, we have missed you here at State Farm Stadium. Looking forward to hopefully seeing you in 2021. And now it's time to take a look at the scoreboard. Obviously, games just about to be kicking off here as the Cardinals kickoff is at 11 a.m. here in Arizona. Well, actually on the road in New York, but some games that we'll be having our eye on. Obviously, we talked about that Vikings-Tampa Bay game, but fun fact here, the 49ers are actually playing here at State Farm Stadium against Washington.
Yeah, we're probably 200 yards away from the field right now, and that's actually a big game in the playoff hunt, too. The 49ers and Washington are both close to the Cardinals and the Vikings, so we'll see what happens in that one. But it does feel like the Cardinals really need to keep winning because there's a lot of teams bunched up, and regardless of the scoreboard watching, if they win, they're back in the wild card spot, and if they keep winning, they'll be in good shape.
Yeah, it's too close for comfort in my eyes. Obviously, I hate to do the scoreboard. I just want them to be able to control their own destiny, and to me, that's getting 3 wins, I feel, in a row here is much needed in order to talk about the playoffs being even in our future.
Yeah, and you look at the NFC West, and at this point, it's not much of a chance to catch the Rams. They're too far ahead at this point. I really feel like wild card is the most plausible scenario, and I do think the Cardinals have a decent shot. Like you said, if they win this game and they continue to do well against the Eagles and the Niners, they'll have a pretty good shot.
Well, this week the Arizona Cardinals announced their Walter Payton Man of the Year awardee, and I can't think of a more perfect person to award this year than Corey Peters. Here's his reaction to his nomination.
Dear Corey, it has been 4 years since we have began this partnership together at South Point Elementary School. It started with one visit. Now you have become a member of our school family. Your work and efforts for our school and the South Phoenix community have been unparalleled and genuine. You have shown us that time is the most important and valuable gift you can give to a community. We're so thankful for you coming to our school every week during the season and off season for the past 4 years. You have been spending your time reading to our elementary students, checking on their academic efforts, reading to our high school students during your book club, and working with our young men on their social skills. It is with great pride that I look at the playground you have donated to our school, knowing you only wanted our children to have the best experience while playing at school. Your dedication to learning is evident with you organizing our back-to-school supply and toiletry drive this year and donating over 1,000 books to our school library. The meals provided every November has been a great help to our families. You have created lifelong memories for our students by providing over 50 of the children with the Christmas gift shopping spree every year. During the pandemic, you have kicked it up a notch. Now all of our 265 students will have school supplies for the entire year and gifts for the holidays. Your character and focus on improving our community are exemplary. Every team, school, and person should have a Corey Peters. I thank you on behalf of our staff, students, and parents for your continuous commitment to education and giving back to our community. As a school leader, I could not imagine a better person to have in our corner.
Wow, and you could just feel his heart while he was reading that. I promise you there's not a community event that we go to, that we cover, where Corey Peters doesn't show up. So this award is obviously in recognition for his outstanding community service activities off the field, as well as excellence on the field. As a nominee, Peters will receive $40,000, a donation in his name to the charity of his choice. And just a reminder, you can check out that video on our YouTube channel. Make sure you click that like button and subscribe for all of our exclusive coverage on your Arizona Cardinals. All right, Kyle, it's time to do a little bird watching here, presented by Santan Ford. Who will you have your eye on the defensive side of the ball here today?
Defensively, I'm keeping an eye on Byron Murphy. I feel like he could be important in the middle of that defense in this game. He's a ball hawk at times, and he's been quiet the last few games, but if he can come up with a big turnover, that could really shift this contest.
And I'm going with the return of Marcus Golden to New York. Who doesn't want to see him play well against his former team? A team, by the way, he was just with a few weeks ago. So he played coy in his media session this week about facing his former team, but as he always does, he gets juiced for every game. We can count on him.
Yeah, no doubt. And offensively, I'm looking at DeAndre Hopkins this week. There's been a lot of talk about how they've used him, not getting him the ball enough downfield. I think Cliff Kingsbury knows how important DeAndre Hopkins is to this offense, and I think he's going to make a concerted effort to get him the ball early and often. Look for DeAndre Hopkins to really bounce back and have a big game. He's been a little bit down of late, but you can't keep a superstar down for long.
Yes, let's see those explosive plays happen here today. Now, my guy is Chase Edmonds. We've talked about it. There's just something about Chase Edmonds at MetLife Stadium. Of course, he played close by at Fordham in college. Now, with a touchdown, Edmonds would have 5 total touchdowns in 3 career games at MetLife Stadium. That would include 4 touchdowns in 2 games against the Giants at the venue. So obviously it'd be nice to see him get going here today. This run game, super important. We'll see what happens here today with this offense, hopefully getting back on track. It's time for our bold prediction of the game. I'm calling it Cardinals win by 6.
I say Kyler Murray gets loose for 75 yards rushing.
Ooh, get loose, K1. All right, Cardinals fans, every play, every snap matters here today as the Cardinals look to get back on track in New York. Make sure you join us for our post-game show right here following this one. Hope you enjoy the game.